No one read the transcript of that case? It's on my website. I know it's marcstevens.net now. The prosecutor, after she was acquitted, said to the judge, I'm going to paraphrase, "You've got to order her to pay her taxes." And the judge came back, "I'm not the IRS, that's your job." So you figure Vernie and her attorney would have, "Goodbye, have a nice day." No! Larry Beecraft, with no prompting whatsoever, "Your Honor, my client will file those returns and pay her taxes, unless I have a transcript that has been altered." It's on my website, marcstevens.net. It's also on the forum, so it's there. And so far, Beecraft or any of his representatives have never come back and said, "That's bull, I never said that." So I take the transcript for what it's worth. So just keep that in mind. As I was working with people, and we were doing a lot of traffic stuff and taxes, doing more and more research, and there was one particular patriot guru out of Minnesota who had an oath of office because he claimed a citizen was the highest political office, and how could you be a citizen, how could you have political office without an oath of office? So he had people filing an oath of office with the county clerk or the county recorder. Anyone familiar with this? That's good. And he's making claims that preamble citizens are not subject to legislative acts. It's pretty good. I said, can I, wow, can I get the citations? And no, he wouldn't do it. He said, you got to pay $600 even though you work for so-and-so. All right. So I went to the county recorder and just got a free copy. I have more legal advice. If you want something like that, go to the county recorder. It costs you about a buck. And I researched all the citations. And lo and behold, every damn one of them wasn't true. Big shock, I know. So I'm bringing this to their attention, and how do you think they met? How do you think they because here all his money's being made on this, and I'm saying, hey, Carl, this is not what this case says. And you don't know Carl, that's why. That was a pretty good impression, by the way, Carl. So during this time I was researching immunity. Why was it possible for judges to put you in jail for contempt with no basis whatsoever and have absolutely no responsibility to you at all? And so I was researching immunity, and I came across a case called Bowers v. DeVito. I don't have the citation off the top of my head, but it is in the book and it's on the website. And what Bowers v. DeVito showed was that the government had no duty to protect. So I did what anyone would do. Well, let's shepherdize the case. And the shepherdizing, all that means is, Shepherds is a series of books where they take court cases and they follow them. See if certain points were overturned or if they were modified in some way. And then they also have other cases that cite that case. So let's take, Bowers v. DeVito, that's just got to be the lunatics in D.C. What does that have to do with Arizona? What does that have to do with anything outside of D.C.? Every single state Supreme Court has said the same thing for 200 years. And the Supreme Court of the United States has too. And any attorney that you'll talk to cannot get through law school without going through DeShaney v. State of Wisconsin. That's where they're weeding you out in law school. Because that particular case, the child was, I believe, killed by the father. There was a protective order, and they sued, and they said, well, you didn't protect our child. And they said, well, there's no duty to protect your child. And so as an attorney, where you basically, sell your soul, is you have to be able to argue both sides passionately. You have to be a zealous advocate. By zealous, I mean a liar, where you have to take a position you don't believe in. I mean, what other... Oh, I'm going to look into that. What other profession? The point being that there was no duty to protect. So when they brought this complaint, it didn't present a case. And it was thrown out. There's actually a case in California on my website. It's the Antioch City case where the California Supreme Court said that Police are under absolutely no legal duty to do anything. So I guess the beatings, killings, and rapings are from a moral obligation rather than a legal one. That struck me. Because here I'm doing all this research about citizens and this and citizen that, and I had known that a citizen is what? Does anyone know what a citizen is? Ian.
An individual with a duty of obligation, allegiance to the state in return for an obligation of protection.
Right. It's a member of the body politic owing a duty of allegiance in return for a duty of protection. So it hit me, if there is no duty to protect anyone. Now I just want to address one issue right now, because they'll say, you'll read cases that say this, the duty is not owed to you, Stefan, as an individual. It is owed to you as a group. So when they shoot it down and they try to argue with you, oh, that doesn't mean anything, that there's no state, that doesn't mean you're not a citizen, it just means there's no duty to protect you as an individual. And the duty is to the whole body of people. Now let's pretend I'm an insurance agent. My duty to insure you doesn't go to you as a person, but to everybody. I insure everybody. So you can take your claim and shove it with a TSA. So we don't know. So I don't know that that's not legitimate. I mean, that's an easy way to explain. You don't need a Supreme Court case. You don't need any legal precedent. The fact that they're saying they insure everybody, or that everyone is entitled to protection instead of just the one, is total BS. That's ridiculous. So just on basic principles of common sense, and I have a 9-year-old that understands that. So don't buy that. So if you present this information, they give you this nonsense, oh, it's all down a hole, don't read the rest of the case, Mark, don't cherry pick. Yes, it does say that in the case, but it's BS. Well, look where it came from. It came from a group of attorneys. So to go through, and I know I've mentioned this before, but it's part of the delusion. There's no duty to protect, which means there's no duty of allegiance due. And if the only thing that makes you a citizen is a duty of allegiance in return for duty of protection, there's no citizens and no body politic, there is no state. And it's really easy to demonstrate that. You didn't get a chance to get that far, Ian, but if you're in court, and many people who have been to the website and have got the book have gone into court and done this, all you do is you challenge the guy who comes in with the cheap suit saying, I represent the state. Ask him for proof. You think it's funny, but I'll tell you right now, the prosecutor doesn't. And if you follow the show, you've heard people call in, full archives, marcstevens.net. You hear calls, people will call in that have done this, and in almost every case where the judge does not help his little buddy, the prosecutor has withdrawn the charges. They won't tell you this, but in every stage of a court proceeding, whether it's criminal or civil, the burden of proof on issues is the same throughout. Delusions versus Defenders of Wildlife. There's a lot of cases like that show that now on the website. Which means, if you're in a civil traffic case, the burden of proof when you show up the first time is by a preponderance of evidence. So if they have to prove standing, it's by preponderance of evidence. If you're in a criminal case and you're there to plead and you're asking some questions, the burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, do opinions of a prosecutor count as evidence to prove something beyond a reasonable doubt? No. That's why in my script, it's one of the questions. It's a setup question. It's one of the more important ones. They ask the judge, anything this schmuck say admissible? And I'll say no. Everything the prosecutor says is supposed to be backed by evidence. But as we know, not always the case. Not in practice. So, you can imagine, though, how many people wanted to hear there was no such thing as a citizen or state. This really shook people. And it was bad enough when they first realized there was no obligation to pay taxes. Now they hear that they're not citizens. Anyone here still think they're a citizen? I'm looking over here. Come on, you can put your hands up. Most people didn't want to hear it, especially someone like this patriot guru because he was making his money selling $600 packages to file an oath of office as a citizen. That was insane. So no, they weren't too happy. So I didn't work with them anymore. At least in my case, when I didn't work with them, the gun didn't come out. So, okay, that was an inside joke. But about this time, a friend of mine, who I wouldn't have expected this, I went to his house, and he had a copy. He had run through a photocopy of a book by a man named Lysander Spooner. The Constitution, no treason, the Constitution of no authority. Now, I thought that at some point in time the government got corrupt, and they just didn't want to protect us anymore. So the whole thing collapsed in on its head. And then I read that. I couldn't believe it. I already knew there were no state and citizens, that here was somebody else, because everyone else I had talked to thought I was insane. Even clients thought I was helping win cases. I had somebody who didn't call me for 6 months. I said, where the hell you been? I'll clean up the language. He basically said I couldn't stand you. You tore my reality out and didn't replace it with anything. Anyone ever hear that? Stefan is probably get that every day. So people weren't happy. Imagine I helped get traffic cases or a tax case thrown out and you're pissed off at me. But they say in science, let the data speak, whatever the data say. And that's what the data said. It's all an illusion. But the first part in particular blew me away. Not just because it was somebody finally saying something that I had come upon in a unique way, but it was the simplicity and how devastating it was. I'm going to read it again, of course, because Sam is filming. And this is from Lysander Spooner's The Constitution of No Authority. Is there anybody here who's not read this essay? Oh. All right. You're about to hate me. The Constitution has no inherent authority or obligation. It has no authority or obligation at all, unless as a contract between man and man. And it does not so much as even purport to be a contract between persons now existing. It purports at most to be only a contract between persons living 80 years ago. It was written in 1869. It can be supposed to have been a contract then only between persons who had already come to years of discretion, so as to be competent to make reasonable and obligatory contracts. Furthermore, we know historically that only a small portion, even of the people then existing, were consulted on the subject or asked or permitted to express either their consent or dissent in any formal manner. That would include Canadians, by the way. Okay. Those persons, if any, who did give their consent formally are all dead now. They're long dead now. Most of them have been dead 40, 50, 60, 70 years. And the Constitution, so far as it was their contract, died with them. They had no natural power or right to make it obligatory upon their children. It is not only plainly impossible in the nature of things that they could bind their posterity, but they did not even attempt to bind them. That is to say, the instrument does not purport to be an agreement between anybody but, quote, the people, end quote, then existing. Nor does it either expressly or impliedly assert any right, power, or disposition on their part to bind anybody but themselves. Let us see. Its language is, and you'll recognize this, we the people of the United States, that is, the people then existing in the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. It is plain in the first place that this language, as an agreement, purports to be only what it most really was, a contract between the people then existing, and of necessity, binding as a contract only upon those then existing. In the second place, the language neither expresses nor implies they had any intention or desire, nor that they imagined they had any right or power to bind their posterity to live under it. It does not say that their posterity will, shall, or must live under it. It only says, in effect, that their hopes and motives in adopting it were that it might prove useful to their posterity as well as to themselves, by promoting their union, safety, tranquility, and liberty. I know we all ask ourselves the same thing when we hear that the first time. My gosh, it's so damn simple. How in the hell did this get past me? And he makes it even clearer as he goes through. He gives an example of someone building a house. I am building this house for me and my posterity. That doesn't mean his grandchildren have to live in it. It seems so simple when you take it in a different context. And I have gone through, I can't tell you how many times I've had to deal with IRS agents. And you ask them point blank, what is the Constitution? And they know, that's supreme law of the land. Does anyone agree with that? No. Why? It's just an opinion. I didn't ask you for an opinion. I just want to know what it is. I don't care what it says, tell me what it is. If I say, what is a table? And you say, it's got a blue thing, skirt on it. It doesn't tell me what table is. So when I ask what the Constitution is, and you'd be amazed, in the 13 years or so I've done it, not one agent has ever known what the Constitution is. Thank you. It's not just a piece of paper, sir. It is 4. It is 4 pieces of paper. Did anyone sign the Constitution? You're right. No. But people say, but I can see George Washington's name right on it. Yeah? Okay. In witness thereof. Is a witness a signatory to the agreement? No. So who signed as a signatory? To bind themselves. As I'm going to get into, these aren't stupid people. They knew what the Constitution meant. They knew what the implications were. They didn't sign it. So imagine an IRS agent is saying, see what attorneys and even some forensic accountants, you can't argue that they don't have a right to tax or a right to the property, just the amount. Well, I can. I do it all the time. Well, you can't. You shouldn't do it. Well, why not? The whole basis of the power to tax is these 4 damn pieces of paper. I think it's pretty important. Try to get a judge to take judicial notice the Constitution is a 4 piece of paper. Anyone know the name Susan Ilston? Stanley Hilton was suing the Bush administration. You ever remember about 9/11, the Mariana case? This doesn't bode well for you guys on Free Talk Live, I gotta tell you that. Wow. Okay. Stanley Hilton was an attorney with Bob Dole, and he was suing on behalf of a woman named Mariana, whose husband died in 9/11. And they put the suit was thrown out by Susan Ilston. Susan Ilston, I personally I was in front of and ran off the bench when I asked for judicial notice the Constitution was a written instrument. I actually had a certified copy in my hand. So, pretty tough to prove someone has a tax liability when it's all based on 4 pieces of paper no one bothered to sign. Who looks like the crazy one now? I got these papers. All right. Okay. Good for you. I have them too. I'm not trying to take your house because I have papers. So, but why does this go past us? Why do we not realize it's just a damn piece of paper? And the reason is because there are people who have spent a lot of money and time and energy making sure that our minds are filled with so much damn junk that even when you're exposed to a truth like that, you'll fight against it emotionally. You can ask Stefan Molyneux. He knows this very well. You've experienced this probably more than I have. Okay, and you still do. I've done hundreds of radio shows, although Free Talk Live I enjoy the most. But Free Talk Live is not a mainstream show, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean you don't have mainstream ideas being espoused by the host. And even though you can get a host to agree, well, a citizen is what? A member of the body politic owing a duty of allegiance. And you can lay it out, and they'll agree every single point. But when you give the illusion that there are no citizens in states, oh, now all the fire and brimstone comes out. Then they gaslight you. You know, they have to, you know, they got to cut the interview short. I did an interview. I was happy. I finally cracked the St. Louis market. Yeah, I know. And I was doing a show called Nothing But the Truth. Yeah, you can follow Crane Durham's career. He's now doing a morning show. And his name is Crane Durham. And I'm going through, this is about 4 years ago. And so to make the point really hit home about no duty to protect and no citizens, I'd go through the Stanley Hilton case. I would talk about 9/11. And we had listened to the show before I was on. It was a 3-hour show. I was the second hour of the show. And we're listening, and my wife is always right about this stuff. We're listening to the show, and she says, you need to call this guy, you need to cancel. He's a Hannity wannabe and a bad one at that. Don't do the show. I gotta crack this market. You know, I can't. Boy, she was right. The whole thing took about 3-4 minutes. So I'm going through the whole 9/11. And it's something we can all agree with. It's not a conspiracy theory to say that those buildings were destroyed that day. You can debate about how they were destroyed, but they came down. And so I'm discussing the facts and leading to my point. And the point was, why are the widows suing the airlines and not the Bush administration, you know, the government? And so he stops me. And he says, wait a minute, are you saying that George Bush allowed 9/11 to happen? Gina was right again. Damn it. So I did the best I could. I said, let me finish my point. I'm almost done. We can talk about 9/11 all you want. He said, this is my damn show. You answer the question or you're gone. I'm gone either way. So I figured I got about 30 seconds. So I made the best of it. I said, well, yeah, given the fact that 39 minutes elapsed before anything was done, all the physical evidence points to, yes, they allowed it to happen. They started screaming and cut me off. Audience members are calling, saying, what should we think of this guy, Crane? To his credit, before he said, you can't fix stupid, he said, you have to make up your own mind. Go to his website, and he gave the website out. So I give him credit for that. But he's not doing that show anymore. So you be prepared for the emotional response. That's just what you're going to get, and you're programmed to respond that way. And if you don't believe you're programmed to respond that way, Steph, freedomainradio.com. He's got about 17,000 podcasts that you can listen to, and you can get a lot of that. My show has been archived. I don't have enough time to go through it, but we're going to go through some of the psychological reasons and background using science as why you have that emotional response. It's the same reason why the judge is going to get so upset with you or someone else when you ask simple questions. You're attacking part of who they are. They force us into their little schools when we're 4 or 5 years old, and they ram this crap down our throats day in and day out. There's those flags everywhere, my gosh. You see, Stefan, you lucked out. Living in Canada, you don't have to see all those damn flags. Yeah, I had a flag up. Anyone else put flags up after 9/11? Yeah, I did too. I put the Gadsden. That one they get. That wasn't obscure enough. All right, so you may ask yourself, people like Ron Paul and Barack Obama, are they in on it? Are they pretending? Do they know they're pretending? Because that's all they're doing. There are no presidents, there are no senators, there are no Congress, there is no congressman, there is no governor, there's people pretending to be. They're playing a part, just like Bill O'Reilly. It's all staged. You may be saying, but they don't know it. Does that mean they're not pretending? When has consciousness of your actions been an element of schizophrenia? Does a schizophrenic know he's not Napoleon? And it's the same here. Now, it's not a personal attack. I know Steph and we were accused of making personal attacks. This is not. If you think it's a personal attack, direct your hatred and criticism to Steph. Right? But I was a vendor at the 2003 Freedom Summit that Ernest Hancock puts on. And Ron Paul was there. Now Moses Antonio was a friend of mine. He helped with some of the editing of the book. Went up to ask him some questions. You figure, wow, we got a politician, and he's going to be honest. Damn it, he's going to be straightforward. It's Ron Paul. Yeah. And he asked him point blank, is the Constitution a contract? You think he answered it? Oh, he did. And I'll paraphrase. I'm sure this video will get somewhere so we can verify this. I know Lysander Spooner would disagree, but I think it's a contract. And they wouldn't allow a follow-up from Moses. Now, anyone saying it's a contract, you want to follow up. Well, how many elements are in a contract? How many factual elements? Who said that? Oh, Ian. Yes, there's 4. So imagine if you were able to follow up with Ron Paul, another politician who said that the Constitution was a contract. Really, what are the 4 factual elements of a contract? Let's see if they exist. Even if they existed in 1789 or 1790, as Lysander Spooner points out, they're all dead. They're all dead. So it doesn't matter if they know they're pretending or they don't know, because the psychological effect is exactly the same. And there's no getting away from that. This isn't a law that someone cooked up. This is psychological testing. These are experiments done with double-blind studies. They were controlled experiments. The Stanford Prison Experiment is a big one. The Stanford Prison Experiment was a 2-week experiment. Now, I know there were some issues because the starts with a Z, but the one who did the experiment... What? Zimbardo. He participated in the experiment, so some would say it's tainted. I'll agree to a certain degree that there is some tainting to the experiment, but it has been replicated before, again, after that. And this 2-week experiment had to be stopped in just a few days because the ones who were pretending to be guards became sadistic. There weren't cameras everywhere. So they'd pull them out of view with cameras. They were beating them, they were peeing on them, it was Abu Ghraib all over. And just because he participated in it.
Can you explain the experiment?
Yeah, I'll talk about a few of them. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but they did a mock prison. And they took otherwise healthy college students and split them into 2 groups. They had prisoners and prison guards. They knew they were pretending. They knew they could leave at any time. They got, within 36 hours, what's called de-individuation. And if that doesn't chill you to your core, it should. You start losing your individual identity. You can only identify as part of a group. What does that sound like? Okay. Change we can believe in, about better America. We. We used to say, unless you're speaking French, just we stuff. And so, after they got the de-individuation, they noticed that the guards were becoming increasingly sadistic. Now, a psychiatrist used that word, not me. And sadistic is, of course, a sexual pleasure from torture. They weren't just torturing them, they were getting pleasure from it. Where just a few days before, they weren't like that. They wouldn't even think to do that, but it was the situation that they were put in. I'll discuss a little bit more about that later. They had to stop it. I think it was 9 days. No, 6 days. A 2-week, 14-day experiment was stopped in 6 days because of what they were doing. And they could leave at any time. Why weren't the prisoners leaving? Because the effect, de-individuation, they were part of a group. Unless the whole group left, they weren't going to leave. It's pretty sad. So, you look at this, that there's no citizens and residents or politicians, and you don't have to, and I'm sorry it's not intriguing enough like talking about the Masons. Oh, it's the Masons, look at the dollar, 666 and everything, and Sean Hannity doing his 6, and that's just the way, you don't have to talk about the Masons, you don't have to talk about the Illuminati, none of that means anything. It's intriguing, that stuff, but it's not important. We used to joke around, you go in front of one of the Mesa courts and they've got the dedication stone from the Masonic Lodge. Like, oh, I've been filing my paperwork in the wrong place, I got to go around the corner to the Grand Lodge. But they give us all these delusions so that we don't see that stuff. We don't see what the actual problem is. We don't, instead of seeing them as killers, thieves, and liars, we see them as honorable members of Congress. They always put honorable. Why? Does your plumber do that? The Honorable Joe Sixpack. What other profession needs to do that? Seriously, what other profession needs to give themselves titles like that?
Lawyers.
Exactly, because people know them for what they are. When we gotta give ourselves titles, people are on to us. Oh, honorable. Okay. See, those people who call themselves government, they can do that because they have superior public relations. It's one of the things I wrote on the back of the book. It's a question. Is it possible that what you think is real is just a public relations scheme? And you damn well better believe it is. And don't ever think for a moment these people are stupid. Stefan mentioned last night a very important thing, I want to bring it out. The government we see, yeah, they look stupid. The ones who are really in control, they're not stupid. How else can you get hundreds of millions of people to accept pieces of paper as money? If you think these people are stupid and don't understand human psychology and socialization, you're dead wrong. Never underestimate them. So don't think for a second, too, that the people who inflict this force or are behind the force, that they don't know what the results are of using paper. It would be like getting into a fight and underestimating your opponent. What does he know? When you're picking up your teeth, because you didn't know what to expect. Never assume. Yeah, and I said in the book, never bring just like a Dago to bring a knife to a gunfight. From the Untouchables. I'm half Sicilian, so nobody. I went, hey, what the? Go ahead. It's not just that you get people to accept these pieces of paper as money, but you get people to actually defend it. They defend it, which is amazing. And you talk about gold and silver, and they call it fine money. So I got to tell you, trying to be as objective and cold as, and scientific as possible, when I see the result that they've got people accepting pieces of paper as money and they're defending it, you're doing a damn good job. They're not stupid. And if you doubt that they're stupid, go and do it yourself. Try getting 100 million people to accept your pieces of paper. You'll realize real quick these are not stupid people that you were dealing with. And some have criticized me, oh, Mark, anything can be used, you can use anything as money, even paper. Well, there's two important issues there. Go out and try to issue your own paper. You'll find out real fast only one group of people are allowed to do that. Just one. And they're willing to kill you to make sure it stays that way. There's plenty of cases to prove that. They have whole sections dealing just with that. It's kind of odd that the Secret Service is inside the Treasury. Yeah, think about that one. But getting people to accept these pieces of paper as money isn't entirely based on physical force. It's based on these delusions and outright lies, such as we're citizens, part of a state, that you're a taxpayer. And how do they address you when you get your letters from the IRS? Is it ever, "Dear Ian, dear taxpayer"? It's the same as me sending a letter back saying, "Dear criminal." I had to say that, thank you. I had one particular one that wouldn't stop. I said, "My client's name is," let's say, Bob. Well, the taxpayer, stop. My client's name is Bob. Well, the taxpayer, if you call him a taxpayer again, I'm going to call you a rapist. No, I don't need any more evidence than you do that my client's a taxpayer. He's a rapist protester. How would you do that with a new non-filer, the new politically correct way of saying tax protester? He's resisting being labeled a rapist. Don't know why. Well, see, it's all bull, and it's easily proven bull. All you have to do is look at the facts. And it's bull right down to the idea that you have rights. Now this is where things get a little sticky. Start telling people they have no rights, and they get really upset. How many people here think they have rights? Raise your hand. Hopefully, you too? Okay. You just doing that for effect, or? Now, I've had people call the show, very irate, when I say you don't have any rights. You tell me I don't have a right to life, liberty, and happiness? That's what I'm saying. What are rights? Anyone? Well, you're not telling me what they are.
Well, they're whatever you fight for. The king has the right to do whatever he wants with the subjects. Why? Because he forces them to do it, and because they go along with it. You have whatever right you want to set up.
But what is it? What is a right?
A right is something you can protect.
But it doesn't tell me what it is. My car is something I can protect. It doesn't mean it's a right.
Something you can't take away.
We know that's not true. Now, a right is a legal claim. That's all it is. It's a legal claim. They only exist in your head. That's it. So I had someone, this guy saying, "You're telling me I don't have the God-given right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness?" I said, "That's what I'm telling you. And if you think otherwise, I'll give you as much time as you need on the show. I'll have you come back on next week." Well, we weren't aware that next week wasn't going to be on. You could come back on and prove it. I said, now I can prove to a certain degree right here on the show right now that you have life, liberty, and property. You have life because I can hear you. I can prove that. You have liberty because I'm assuming that there's no one standing there with a gun to your head. Even if they are, you still made a conscious choice and have liberty, you're still talking. You have liberty. Property, I can pretty much presume that because you've got at least a microphone and an internet connection. So these are things I can prove. These are tangible. I can make a case you have life, liberty, and property. Now make a case you have a right to life, liberty, and property. Okay? Now I know why Steph, he's not sitting there like this because he's saying this guy's full of crap. You know, some other people, who doesn't agree? Okay. We'll go through more where we'll address that after. We'll give you an opportunity to lay the facts out. Because when you start laying the facts out, you're going to come to the same conclusion many U.S. attorneys and prosecutors have come to. Don't exist. And it's not just because they refuse to acknowledge it. Because they don't think you have rights to life, liberty, and property either. But for different reasons. Okay? But because of this BS, because we think we have rights, we think we're citizens and residents, because of these delusions, if you can get people to accept this BS, you don't need to exert that much force. In fact, if you put the delusions over well enough, you can get your victims to apply the force for you, which is exactly what police and tax agents do. A tragic example of getting the victim to do the force for you is someone like Pat Tillman. And if you're not aware, Pat Tillman played for the Cardinals. He's a pretty good example, tragic one though. Thought he was fighting for his country. And even when someone does that, when the victim exposes or when the victim uses the violence against other victims for the controllers, they wind up getting shot by friendly fire, they call it. And did they tell the truth? No. So here the guy walks away from $1 million contract playing with the Cardinals, who eventually actually did get to the Super Bowl. Throws it all away to go kill people he's never met in Afghanistan. And they lie to his family about what happened. If you think they're going to stand by you because you defend them, oh, the Constitution says I have rights and this, they're not going to stand behind you. Think of Pat Tillman. So this gets back to what I asked earlier. Is it possible to program people have emotional responses? And I think we know that it is. And anyone with any understanding of human psychology knows this is possible. You can see and hear examples of it every day, especially if you're listening to a mainstream radio show where I'm a guest. You'll hear it all the time. The funny thing is, if I say 1 + 1 = 3, how many people in here are going to get angry with me? This guy. Get him out of here, Sam. Okay, but most people, if I say 1 + 1 = 3, most people will dismiss me as an idiot unless I can convince you I'm the president. Then it's okay. Then it's okay. But you usually don't get offended by statements like that. But it's different if I say there's no such thing as citizens or illegal aliens. I don't know the anger. Why be personally offended? I did an article called "There's No Such Thing as an Illegal Alien." Now, how can there be an illegal alien? I'm looking at Steph. How can it be an illegal alien unless there are citizens and states? Now, can anyone prove that there are citizens and states? So can anyone prove that there's an illegal alien? See, it's okay to let Steph speak now. He's good.
I'll try to do English.
But why the anger? Where does it come from? And why defend the very people who are living off of you as a parasite? They've programmed you. Plain and simple. You've been programmed. We've all been programmed. Okay? The difference with these lies, it becomes a part of who we are. If I didn't get angry when my parents told me, I found out that my parents lied that it was Santa Claus. Yeah, I beat the shit out of them, but I didn't get angry. And depending on your perspective, the apparent human need to bond and belong to a group is either a curse or a blessing. It's all perception. To those who want to control and feed off of us, it's certainly a blessing and one they cash in on every day. Think about how many times a friend has asked you about how a certain sports team did by asking, how did we do? As if you're a part of that damn team. As if you had anything to do with that team winning. Kind of, because they stole your money to pay for the stadium. And I think this is why I'm interested really in only individual type sports. I really like Olympic weightlifting. Because I gotta tell you, if anyone ever said, it just sounds so stupid. Demas performed, he competed today? How did we do? Do you see how ridiculous it is to think that I'm a part of this guy lifting? And you watch the Olympics, you're like, he's brought the whole nation of Greece together. I don't mean to offend anybody Greek in here. And I think with sports teams, they must be laughing at everyone. They get politicians to steal your energy. They use it to build stadiums. And then they charge you to watch them play. You even pay to park your car. So then while they receive millions for scoring more points than the other team, you think, we won! What did you win? What the hell did you get? If one is synonymous with what the TSA is doing, then you did win. You got it good. So people calling themselves government, they're not stupid. And that's, because there are people who think, very public people who think that they're of the opinion that the government we see is stupid, so they can't pull off something like 9/11. They're so stupid, you're going to continue paying them 90% of your energy, your time. They're so incompetent, you keep paying them. Who's the stupid one? You got to ask you. They're so incompetent, allegedly, that they are able to get trillions of dollars of your energy with minimal force. That is not stupid. That is very, very smart. And then they turn around and they poke fun at us. Not everyone recognizes they're laughing at us. Donald Rumsfeld, September 10th, 2001. We can't account for 2.3 trillion. It's gone. It's gone. Next day, the Pentagon's hit. You can watch any TV show with cops. There are no coincidences. $2.3 trillion. How does it disappear? 2.3 trillion. They're laughing at us. They're laughing. If I didn't sign for the meal last night, the bartender would lose his job. This guy is admitting to losing 2.3 trillion. So the difference is when you are not a normal person, you don't lose your job. You get to steal trillions more, lose it, destroy a couple of buildings, and then have people put flags all over their cars and give you trillions more to lose. Oh, and you can submit to humiliating body cavity searches when you travel. But the French, you gotta call them freedom prize, right? These delusions differ from the Santa Claus one because they become a part of our identity. My saying 1 + 1 is 3 doesn't affect your identity in any way. But getting it to affect your identity is how you get people to kill strangers. They'll kill for you, and they'll kill people they've never met and know nothing about. You remember the famous line that Muhammad Ali said. I don't want to, I'm not going to say it, but basically, ain't no Viet Cong ever called me a... He's right on the money. And what's always gotten me is how they can get people to kill like that. And if you ever watch the old movies like The Revolution, nobody can convince me this is not thinning the herd. This is population control. And it always follows or is right near a high inflationary period. Watch them marching into cannon fire. How do you get men to leave their families and march to cannons? And if you doubt for a moment that war is not by choice to make a profit, I want to turn your attention to World War I during Christmas. Is anyone familiar with the Christmas armistice? If that does not convince you, I'm going to just mention it for a bit. They stopped. In the middle of a battle, they stopped fighting. Some even played football, as the legend goes. You've got men who are trying to kill each other and they stopped. It's about thinning the herd. See, stupid people are not the ones getting people to kill for them over 4 damn pieces of paper. They understand human behavior, and damn it, they understand it pretty well. And they understand it better than most of us in this room. They've done their groundwork, and the victims now do most of the work for them. So I coined a phrase called residual tyranny. And it's similar to in sales, when you make a sale, you get a commission. And as long as that contract is renewed, you will keep getting a commission. And if you keep forcing the bullshit down people's throats, they get their kids to grow up and feed it to their kids, and you get residual tyranny. They will gladly shoot you on the side of the street because you don't give them a license fast enough. They cannot tell you why you have to produce that identification, but they will kill you nonetheless. And it's why we have cops, soldiers, and tax agents. They buy into the delusion they're a citizen and that the government is there to protect them every damn much as the average person does. They believe this stuff. They do all the dirty work. Lenin called them useful idiots. Because they're too stupid or they're too deluded to realize what they're doing. That's why Voltaire is credited with saying, as long as people believe in absurdities, they will continue to commit atrocities. Because the Jews were destroying the economy. Because the Armenians, I can go on. It's the nature of the job. And no one, not even Ron Paul, is going to change it. The reason why you have these atrocities is explained by the Stanford prison experiment. They're pretending. You have a huge prison experiment that is going on right now. We're all a part of it. It's just public relations and delusions that divert us away from that all too present machine gun. Together with the Stanford prison experiment, you look at the Milgram experiment. 67% of the time, you will get people to follow what an authority says simply because they have no responsibility. I can't get into all the details, but you put the Stanford prison experiment together with the Milgram experiment, and then with Solomon Ash's work in the Ash conformity test, and you have the stuff of nightmares. Pretty much what we have in government now. And what should anger you is not the truth, that you have these experiments that are showing human behavior. Well, if we put you in the right situation, sir, you'll kill your neighbor. You'll drown children if you're in the right circumstances. The irony, which should make you really upset, all right. What should anger you is how they continue to laugh at us. As important as these experiments are, who paid for them? We did. They stole the money. So it's a way of saying, hey, we've got every reason why you should throw every politician in the river and abolish government now and never accept it ever again and end war in your lifetime. Right here. These are the reasons why. But you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. You know why? Solomon Ash told us why. And I think it could be the greatest human tragedy in the history of the world. You think that not just everyone here, maybe nobody buys into this crap anymore. But according to Solomon Ash and his experiments, we're too afraid because we don't know that no one buys it. So, according to the Solomon Ash experiment, which has been replicated many times, we will continue answering or giving the wrong answer or acting on the wrong answer because we think our friends believe it. Think of that. Think of the tragedy, all the killing that is being done because we are going to base our actions on what we think everyone else is doing. So instead of abolishing government after seeing these experiments that they stole the money for to pay, instead of throwing them out, we watch Candid Camera and we laugh about it. Oh, the guy in the elevator turned around when everyone else did. They're making fun of us. It's my opinion anyway. They're doing it knowingly. It's just like the whole housing boom. We talked about this yesterday, I've spoken about this a lot. Don't think for a moment that they didn't engineer the housing boom and bust, because they did. And anybody in the television industry knows that's true. Because you do not get all those stupid flip-a-house shows on the air in the middle of the boom. Doesn't happen. Doesn't work that way. It does take years of planning to do. So they engineered it. They knew what was going on. And I've heard it over and over before. We talk about the government we can't see. Give me a name. You hear all those, and even Ron Paul gets these, the smoke-filled conspiracy crack. There's guys with cigars meeting in a room, plotting destruction of the world, the Masons. Give me a name. If someone broke into your house, and you didn't, and you had all the evidence of it, the dog is dead, the house is, the door is on the floor, okay, all your pot plants are gone. You've got all this evidence there, somebody was in your house and took your stuff, but you don't know the name. Does that mean you weren't robbed? Somebody is raped, we don't know the identity, but all the physical proof is there. Does that mean that just because you don't know the name of the attacker, you weren't attacked? That's what they'll do to you on a radio show. Not Free Talk Live. But they'll do that to you on Coast to Coast. Give me a name. Who's behind this? I don't know. I don't know. We're dealing with pretty smart people. So I like to respond with, look, there's a body on the floor, 4 gunshot wounds to the back of the head. It's evidence somebody was killed and probably not with their consent. Anybody who needs the name of the perp to be convinced somebody was murdered is either a complete idiot, although an idiot who could do really well at Fox News. We're programmed to accept these delusions, and we're programmed mostly by the other victims. Remember the residual tyranny. You're going to see the residual tyranny all the time now. Like I said, we're forced to put children in schools, or concentration camps. And anyone who doubts you cannot be killed for educating your children at home, you need to go to voluntaries.com. Carl Watner, wonderful writer, wrote an article about the Singer family, John Singer. Anyone familiar with John Singer? He must be a homeschooler. They refused to put their kids in public school. They were homeschooling. Oh my gosh. And he was shot. And what stunned me, I've done what I thought I was doing a libertarian show. And so I'm discussing with the host before the show what we're going to talk about, and we just got on the thing about compulsory education. And he actually said to me, he's from Florida, but it wasn't you. There's no compulsory education, what are you talking about? When you're 5, they take your children for a few hours a day, and it lasts till they're 18. But there's no such thing. I'm thinking of talking to, Sean Hannity's producer. What are you talking? What do you mean? You're going to have to show me a statue. Oh my gosh. Don't call this show again. I couldn't believe it. But it is true. If you don't put your kids in their school, they'll either take your kids or kill you in the process. And when we believe others may accept these delusions, then we tend to stick with the delusions, knowing the delusions. And do you think the parasites of society know this? Like I said, they paid for these experiments. They stole the money from us and conducted the experiments, so they know this very well. So, in reality, very few people may accept may actually accept the delusions as true. And just want to, real quick before I have to wrap up and go, there's evidence that they know of this, and it's right in the Declaration of Independence. They know all these scientific stuff. They know how people respond. Because they said, mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. So they know all. They know this stuff. So how do we cut through the delusions that we're bombarded with on TV and radio? Well, of course not FTL. How do we get through this? And this is one of the ways that I've been successful in helping people with IRS attacks. Stick to the facts. That's all you got to do. It's that simple. If you go to the website, I have a video where you can hear a call from someone in the California Franchise Tax Board. This is all I had to do to shut the woman down. Is there a factual and legal distinction or difference between income and taxable income? Yeah. Do you know what they are? I can't answer that. Oh, you're damn right you can't answer. You know why? There is no such thing as income and taxable income. Well, definitely not taxable income. So it's sticking to the facts. So like I did, you want to first establish exactly what a right is. Then you can go about establishing evidence or producing some proof. So until you can identify the Constitution, you have to identify what it is, and then you can start talking about how it applies to somebody and why you're entitled to take their house because of it. Focus on the facts. It's enough just to ask somebody factually what is a citizen. Then all you have to do is be quiet, they'll stutter a little bit, and then you get a predictable emotional response. And it's like, oh no, you've personally attacked a group that they belong to. I'm a citizen of the state. Oh, and then you know what they're going to do next? They're going to call the local Clear Channel station and say, my neighbor hates America and doesn't support the troops. So that's what you get. The emotional responses happen more time than I can recall, and my time is very short, so I'm going to just go through one quick one where I was at the gym and there was a former cop that I had been friends with. He was a former cop. And he had gotten a ticket and was really ticked off that he'd gotten his ticket. So I'm giving him some legal advice. And so I explained, oh, well, it's very easy. Put the cop on a stand and ask 2 questions. And did you file a valid cause of action against me? And then the cop says, well, yes. And then well, how many elements are in a valid cause of action? Now, I thought this was, at first, wondered, wow, that's so easy. Then he started thinking, wait, but cops aren't taught this stuff. He's getting mad at me. You put a gun on and you pull people over. You're willing to shoot them. And you don't know if there's a cause of action against them. Real nice. Can you understand the emotional response now? Sorry. Yeah, pretty bad. So we get the emotional response simply because we're exposing the delusions. So if we stick to the facts, you cut through all that, and it makes dealing with the IRS a lot easier. I wish I had more time, but I want to thank everyone for coming in today.
I think we're going to have Mark come back and do like 4 hours next year.
Thanks again.
And Mark's going to be out talking to people, right?
Yeah, the angry ones I told you, you take that up with Steph.
And is Patri here? I mean,